you guys know that a group of kangaroos is called a mob? It really makes you wonder how like the Irish mob and all that stuff got their name. But speaking of mobs, there has been one in recent, especially in bass fishing, and that is the mob of the fuzzy dice. And so today, we're gonna be talking about exactly that and if you should actually be throwing the fuzzy dice. Is it actually worth it? I was a little bit, like most, hesitant at first on the dice. But let me tell you, it'll blow your mind, but the stuff just works. It really does. That little dude right there is causing so much hype, conversation, and new brand introduction in the year of 2025. It is unbelievable. From making small little cube baits with hairy, fuzzy strands on it to taking baits that are already around and simply just putting strands of rubber through them and calling them fuzzy. Now, seems very silly, but I could tell you and assure you, and proof by evidence of this video down below, that's over to my other channel, Be The Fish, where I caught the living crap out of some smallmouth with the dice. It works. And you've seen a lot of people using it on forward-facing sonar. You don't even need to use forward-facing sonar. I did mine sight fishing. Simply looking, seeing the fish, casting at it almost like you would with a wacky rig. But for whatever reason, they were kind of being weird to the wacky rig, and instead throw the dice, and they were eating it like a topwater.
Oh man.
Oh,
Oh man.
oh, dude, I just had one come airborne. Now there's so many different ones out there. This is the kind of the OG that started all of the mayhem and the OSP dice right here. But you can go for, I like the G-Crack dice. There's Three Brothers. There is now Yamamoto, Z-Man. There's so many different options. Strike King has an option. Give it another year or so, and every single brand now going to have their version of a fuzzy dice or a fuzzy bait of some sort. Now, you can definitely create your own, and people have been. It's really not that hard to go take a hunk of plastic and shove some strands of rubber strands through it and be able to create your own fuzzy baits. Now, the application of it. There's a couple different things, and it's actually really quite simple. How you work the bait is completely up to you, and I think it's still kind of being learned, understood, and being taught. But the most popular way that I have found for people to rig these is simply just a Nico weight. You can put a Nico weight up through there. I have a little BKK drop shot hook that is through that, size 1. I've noticed the smaller the hook, the better, because obviously the less, some of these baits being as small as they are, the smaller the hook you can use, the less that hook hides itself with the bait, and obviously the more apt those fish are to biting that bait. Now, especially shallow, you can throw these things weightless. That is one of my favorite ways to do it, because watching them come up full bore towards the surface to eat that bait, because they don't sink very fast, is absolutely awesome. But you can put little Nico weights into it to make it sink faster, put it on a drop shot. There's even different rigs, like I'll feature right here. I have them rigged up right now, but they're actually in my other stockpile of stuff, and I can show you guys in another video. But essentially it's a drop shot hook with a little swivel deal to allow you to attach a weight below it. That way you can have essentially a weightless presentation without having to put a Nico weight or anything into your dice, but having a weight on the bottom to allow it to get down further. Kind of almost essentially like a free rig, if you will, or the dice version of a Texas rig, I suppose. But those are the most popular ways. I have seen people throwing these things. I've seen people even shove them through jig heads, things of that nature. But really, what it comes down to is they're quite simple to throw. It's kind of very similar, in my opinion, to that of a wacky rig. A lot of times you can throw it at these fish and kind of just let it fall, and that's all you got to do. They're going to come up and eat it. But there are some times too where there's some that are curious that might need a little bit enticing to get to bite, or sometimes just some small line slacks twitching, if you will, kind of like you would with a wacky rig, can entice and trick those fish into finally coming up and eating that dice. But otherwise, very simple to use. It's just a little weird to go and throw. It seems silly until you catch a big one on it, and then it doesn't seem so silly anymore. Why are they eating it? Nobody knows. There's one theory being thrown around that is essentially this appears to be like the bacteria that bass would eat as yearlings, as babies, and that is why they think they eat them. But then the contradicting argument to that is bass scientifically have been proven that they can't remember past 3 months, I believe it is. Then there's also something with heredity of, dropping down from ancestors of things you might remember in lineage. So who knows? Who knows? There's still a lot of studying to be done on why the heck they eat the dice, but also bass are just opportunistic feeders, and it's something new. So they might not care, and they're just going to eat it. All I know is it works, and I like to catch fish, so I'm going to throw it. And so really what helps throwing this much easier is your setup. Setup is obviously, like everything else, is very crucial. This is a 7-foot medium fast. This is a Dobyns Champion XP 703 SF. It's for kind of like a perfect drop shot rod. What I found, it has a very, very, very soft tip. Allow those fish to grab this. Sometimes they can be pretty interesting with the dice. For whatever reason, the dice has a little bit of a more difficult hookup ratio. As in they kind of come up sometimes, just grab the strands and swim away. Or maybe they need a second. I let these fish eat it for kind of like a frog. Give them a second to eat it. Watch my line start going. Give them a second and then lean. I don't jam them. I just lean and let my rod do the work because it's a softer tip, bigger backbone on the rod, and then the line is huge. The line is a big part of it. So I have on here 11-pound Sunline All Might. It's a thinner sinking braid, finesse braid, but really outside of the sinking aspect allows you to cast super light baits much better. And so I have that to I think this is a 6-pound fluorocarbon. So super light because I was sight fishing absolute clear water. So I went super light finesse tackle on this setup. And that definitely seemed to get a lot of bites when they weren't eating the norm. But I've heard of people throwing monofilament to keep that dice up higher. You can tinker with your setup based on where those fish are in the water column, whether or not you're using technology. It works great. But this is a rod that I'm gonna keep playing around with, especially some longer ones. I might try like some 7.5s, it's like 7'6" medium lights, and just see how those work, as those kind of rods work really well with throwing hair jigs like marabou. So it couldn't be a solution for hookup ratio as well as casting distance for the dice that I'm going to experiment with here. But otherwise, in my experience so far, just simple 7-foot medium fast has been great for throwing the dice. And as always, I'll leave all that setup linked down below. Let me know if you've been throwing the dice yet, if you think the dice is stupid, if you think the dice is great. Obviously, it's the trendy thing right now, but it has been fun, and it was actually a pretty cool video to sight fish all these big smallmouths on the Great Lakes that I'll link down below as well if you guys would like to give that a watch. As always, you guys are awesome. If there's something you'd like to see me discuss, talk about, do a video on, comment down below, DM me on social media. But as always, please like, subscribe to the Bass Fishing Playbook. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one.